All right. Hello, everyone. So I'm Elisa, and Sam is here. For the people at home, Sam will appear in a minute. And okay, let's get started with this. Right, so this is some work that Sam and I did as part of the Generation of London English project. And that's how it started. We asked ourselves, is there a multicultural London English intonation? And you might be wondering, why did we ask ourselves this question? And this is because multicultural London English has been described by linguists extensively with regards to sounds of vowels and consonants, like words used, like discourse markers, like structural stuff. But as far as intonation, so the melody of a language and prosody in general goes, there is not much work out there from linguists. However, there is a place down in the internet where people actually like talking about this stuff. With all right, even if sometimes they pick up wrong pitches. So this is the people that talk about multicultural London English intonation the most as people that do pronunciation guides, mostly for actor. So it's very much sort of like training actors to sound like Emily speakers. And so this is the dubious picture they decided to pick to show as the speakers of Emily. But what do they say? Let's have a look. So of course I described vowels and consonants and lexes and whatnot. But what do they say about prosody, and what do they focus on? What do they hear that it's different, if anything? So they talk about rhythm, so the beat of language, as Cobing mentioned before, and they talk about pitch, so the melody, how high and low your voice goes whilst you're speaking. And what do they say? Broadly, they tend to point out that there is something interesting in Emily, because the melody of Emily, it seems to link to origins or heritage of the speaker. So if the speaker is of Caribbean heritage, they might bring over in the melody of their speech a more Caribbean-like melody. Whereas if the speaker has a Cockney sort of London English, traditional London English heritage, then they will have more a timing of their speech will be more similar to that. And also, what they point out a lot, and if you've watched any of Top Boys films, everyone you would have noticed it, is that what Emily speakers do is they raise very quickly up and down their pitch when they speak. Okay, so this is what trainers tell actors to do. Now, I want you to have a go and trying to figure out what's going on, okay? So I'm gonna play this a very, very short excerpt, okay? And I'd like you to, this excerpt is from our most recent data collection, and I would like you to think what you can hear that to you sound Emily, okay? And you can think about, sound of vowels, consonants, lexicon, grammar, and why not, prosody. All right? You ready? I'll play a few times. It's very quick. All right. Oh, it doesn't work. Great. I'm not going to try to do it. It was working a minute ago. Oh, we're muted. There, no.
No, we've shared our audio here.
But it says we're muted.
We haven't changed any settings. Chat amongst yourselves.
It worked a second ago.
It did work a second ago. Let's swap to sound from my laptop and see if that helps.
Just try and stop share and reshare or something.
No, actually, you press share with sound.
Yep.
Yep.
Is it? Oh, it's picking up the PC on here. That's why.
Oh.
Laptop. Sorry.
Ooh.
So you need to turn that sound off.
I don't know why I can't get the mouse down.
You have to repress PC, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's moving now. Should be okay now, I think.
She's a meaty thing.
All right. Okay, we'll play it again.
She's a meaty thing.
Once more, just for the giggles. Oh, God, what is wrong?
She's a meaty thing.
All right. Any ideas from home or here in the room? Now, someone that wants to tell me what do they pick? That sounds unusual or different.
Do you want a moment to discuss among yourselves?
We can, indeed.
She's a meaty thing. She's a meaty thing.
Again, the intonation is wrong. Very strong, emphatic stress on. It's like stop.
All right.
She's a meaty thing.
I was going to say, I'm going to play once more, and then I'll ask you to tell me what you think. And then I'll play it with my voice on the top.
She's a meaty thing.
And this is a pretty cool, snippet, right? Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can play it on loop, so you never get bored of it. But any idea of what could be of interest? Or, you know, if you were one of those, like, what do you call it? Accent trainer for actors, what would you say to pick? Yes?
I think our students would pick up on ting straight away, and maybe the lexical choice of meaty.
Yeah. So, you know, some segments, the word meaty, anything?
Interesting. That kind of key word that she wants that's so elongated.
Woo. Okay. Very good. That is a very. You can work for the actor trainers. Anyone else?
Anything online?
Anything online? Yes. Sorry.
Pronunciation of like pronunciation. Like.
Yeah. Very good.
And it's creaky as well.
Yeah.
Squiggles mean creaky.
A lot of creak. All right. So let's have a look. As you know, as someone has mentioned just now, there is something going on besides, you know, pronunciation of lack, the choice of meaty and the th pronunciation. There is something that is going on, especially in that word meaty, that sort of like stands out. And as what we have called an emphatic consonantal lengthening. So it sounds like that's there is something going on over there. And also, there is something going on in the shape of the melody of the voice, okay? How it goes up and down, this rise-full intonation. So this is what you could argue sounds like Emily intonation. And then the question is, or the question we worked with, oh no, I want to move this now. I can't, oh right, whatever. The research question we worked with is this, whether this rise-fall intonation pattern that we can see here and here is special or different, or it's just something that English people do anyway, but if everyone does it, why does it sound Emily? I could give you a spoiler, but I'm gonna let Sam do that.
Okay. So this is a double act. I will move that. Let's put it up there. Woo. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought you were going to do the slide, but I'll do. Yeah. No.
Sorry, I forgot. I just was very dramatic. Right, so what does, just briefly, where does the data sets or that we've been using in this work come from? Emily was described for the first time in East London, so in the Hackney, in the red colored borough of London. And this dates back to beginning of 2000 and 2008, 2018. And then more recently, namely in the last 3 years, we've been working on this generation of London English, where we collected data in the blue areas that you can see. So it's again in East London, but also in the south. And this is crucial, and I'm not going to give a spoiler here, but you'll hear about that by Devyani later on. And for our study about MLE intonation, what we did, we compared the speech patterns of a teenager in East London. So nothing, we've not worked, Sam and I, on the data of South London yet. And we compared recordings from back at the beginning of the 2000s in Hackney and the new recordings, some of the new recordings that we've made. So now I'm done for real. Bye.
And just to say that work done in the 2004, 2011 was Paul Kurzweil was involved. Those of you in the room will see that Paul is here. Those at home, Paul is here. Thank you, Paul. And our study, so our little study is probably the first study of multicultural London English intonation using spontaneous speech. There's been some studies that have looked at scripted speech, and you won't be surprised to learn that people don't produce very MLE-like talk when they're reading something. So we think this is the first time we're really studying it in the wild, as it were. The key point is that we want to compare the speech of teenagers 20 years ago and more recently. And so the key concept we wanted to drum into you and get you some hardcore sociolinguistics for is the issue of the criteria that we should use to compare accents. And there's a real risk here that we end up accidentally comparing apples with oranges, hence the lovely picture. And I'm just going to do that so I can make sure that you can see me at home. And what the answer is going to be, well, it depends, because there are going to be different ways of being different. And I'm giving you a bit of the history of this, because why not? I'm a teacher, and you're teachers, and you'll probably appreciate it, or at least be polite and not say, well. So one of the earliest ways of talking about this didn't come from the Anglo-centric world of linguistics, but actually it was at least Eurocentric, I suppose. But Trubetskoy, who's one of the sort of known as the father of modern phonology, came up with this description, not talking about English specifically, but about languages in general, and said that sound differences between two dialects might be of three kinds. And he talked about the phonological system, and I'll unpack that in some examples in a moment, or the phonetic realization of sounds, or the etymological distribution. So an accent could differ they're sort of like planes of difference or parameters, different ways of being different. And if you need to make sure you're thinking about what type of comparison you're dealing with to check you've really got a difference. If that makes sense? That was applied to English most memorably by John Wells in his amazing series of books, Accents of English, in the 1980s. And he sort of split it out to 4 types. And here we've got some examples here, and we've put some more examples on the case study page you can do. So he has 4 categories. So you have systemic variation, which means your whole system is different in some way. So the example we've got is the probably well-known foot-strut split. So if you're from the north of England, the word foot and strut probably have the same vowel. And if you're from the south of England, those vowels, that you probably say foot and strut, and you have 2 different vowels. So there's literally a different number of vowels in one accent versus the other. It's a system-wide inventory difference. It's a fundamental difference. You could also have a realizational difference where it's essentially the same vowel, but you just do it a bit differently. Your tongue's in a slightly different place, or it's essentially the same consonant, but you're doing something different. So the example we've got is goat, where I would normally say goat, but if I was visiting my sister in East Yorkshire, I might say girt, and I'm not going to try any of the others because I'll mess them up. But how you can have fun with the goat vowel, and there's a nice link to a video in the case study, in the classroom materials on understanding goat. So that's phonetic variation. It's the same vowel, the same number of vowels. We all have the goat vowel, but we do it slightly differently, and so it sounds slightly different. The next two, it gets more of a mind bend as you go on. This is really hard stuff, so buckle up. Distributional means we have the sounds, but it's a sort of across the board. So both my variety of English, which is a non-rhotic variety, and I don't know, I'm going to stereotype and say a Scottish speaker. So look, you have a general American English. I know you know some variety of American English. I'm not going to try and pin you down. You're a rhotic speaker, Selena, yes. So I would say car. I drove my car to the university this morning, and Selena would say if she had one.
I drove my car.
Yeah, and so after a vowel, I will always not have an R sound, and Selena will always have an R sound, unless we're trying to imitate each other. And then the last one is this lexical variation, which is a sort of kind of distributional, but it's it's not across the board, it's certain. So for me, the words spook and book do not have the same vowel, but I believe, Claire?
Spook and book.
So, and I have oo and oo, and Claire has oo and oo. We have the same vowels, and we pronounce, the realization is the same. It's just why is spook one way and book I don't know. Why isn't it spook and book for me? I don't know. Good. Now, Bob Ladd, who was my PhD examiner, and I like him a lot, based at the University of Edinburgh, applied this to intonation. And you have to kind of just adapt it a little bit. The first two are roughly the same, but we can't really talk about lexical items and being specific to a specific lexical item for intonation, because you can spread your intonation, your pitch over, doesn't matter what the words are. I can say bananas or serendipity or anti-disestablishmentarianism, and it doesn't matter. I'm using the same contour, yeah? So we have to think a little bit differently about the variation. Most linguists switch off at this point, so you're doing really well to hold it, because they go, intonation, oh, that's scary. I think it's well, they usually don't do it. We're a rare breed. So systemic is about the same. So you have a different inventory of available tunes. So some people just have a tune shape. I'll show an example in a minute that other people don't have. Realizational is we have essentially the same tune, but the phonetics of it are slightly different. It might go a bit higher, it might be a bit later. You get differences between accents of German in how late, how quickly you rise to the peak and how quickly you come down. The last two, the phonotactic one, that's a good technical linguistic term, which is about phon and tactic, what things can touch each other. Be tactile. So what sounds can be next to each other. And so that means you have the same tune and the phonetics of it are the same, the sort of shape of it is the same, but the rules about how it can be spread over syllables or words are a bit different. And the one we're going to end up seeing, that is the spoiler alert, is this last one, semantic, where you've got the same tunes and they line themselves up over syllables in the same way, and the phonetics of them are the same, but they're doing slightly different work. So either the meaning of them is slightly different, or you're using them more often, or mapping them to different meanings than other people do. Spoiler alert, that's where we're headed. Okay. What is intonation anyway? So intonation is part of prosody. So prosody is a sort of umbrella term that covers anything bigger than an individual vowel or consonant. And so it includes things like stress within a word, which syllable in a word is stronger or louder or longer than the others. It covers rhythm, so the sort of beat of your speech, which is actually a byproduct of the structure of the words, but so it's not something we control necessarily. We occasionally sort of put a bit of a rhythm on our speech, but this is largely just something that happens automatically from the structure of the words in a particular accent. And then intonation is mainly what you're doing with pitch, but there's some other things involved as well, but largely pitch. And we use this to chunk up our utterance. So I could say, I'm having chocolate cake and crisps. That's healthy, isn't it? Or I could say, I'm having chocolate cake and crisps. Chocolate cake and crisps, or chocolate cake and crisps. And you know that I'm having 3 unhealthy things in the first one and just the 2 unhealthy things in the second one. And I can say chocolate cake and crisps and tell you that I'm really interested that it's chocolate cake and not, I don't know, chocolate brownies. Yeah, and I'm putting stress within the sentence. And then I can also say chocolate cake and crisps. Are you mad? And I can change the tune, and that's sort of showing you some kind of, really? Are you sure? Is that not going to give you some kind of health issues? And the thing we're going to talk about is that rise-fall intonation that we saw in the meaty ting example. In English, we're typically analysing the pitch over the last stress word in an utterance. So in she's like a meaty ting, the stress in that utterance is on meaty, the me syllable of meaty, and we're interested in what the pitch does on me, and then any syllables after it until the end, yeah? And in that case, there's 2, me, ting. And the rise fall goes me, ting. It's pretty up and down pretty fast. If we had a rise plateau, it would go me, ting, sort of go up and then stay high. And we're using these terms. There are other technical descriptions that are out there, but we use sort of simple words to describe things. And rise plateau contours are actually quite common in the north of England and in Northern Ireland, and we know this by using our ears, but we also know it from a very nice study that was done in the 90s. Yeah, recordings with teenagers in 9 locations around the UK. All of the data is available to download here, so if you just want some recordings of some kids talking to each other, use the free speech of this. There's pairs of teenagers. They were always asked to talk about smoking. Do you smoke? If you need some Liverpool kids saying, do you smoke? I don't smoke. Anyway, it's fabulous. I could listen to that particular conversation. I have listened to it a lot. And then they also do what's called a map task, where they sort of try and do a game where they have to interact. So there's lots of talk. But there's also some scripted speech where they read lists of statements and different types of questions. And when they analyse that read speech, I'll unpack this. You've got a map here, and for each of the locations where they recorded, you've got a little pie chart. And the colours are telling you the proportion of the utterances. So on the left here, we've got statements. So they were things like, we arrived in a limo. They were ridiculous sentences. We arrived in a limo is one of them. And the other one is, you brought the lilies. Linguists have sad and happy lives at the same time. And you can see that here. The grey is the rise plateau, which is sometimes also known as the urban North British rise. And we can hear a Belfast one here. Hopefully that this is quite quiet.
You remember the lilies?
That is a natural Belfast statement, yeah? You remember the lilies? That was nearly good, yeah? And there are other places you can see that the Newcastle speakers had some of these as well, which might fit our stereotypes about Geordie, if we were going to say that. I'm not looking at Claire because she's not a Geordie. Yeah, sort of northeast, yeah. But you can see that, for example, if we were to compare Belfast with Leeds or Bradford or Cambridge or London, they don't have this at all, yeah? And even over here, when we look at questions, you get a few of these grey things here. You get them in Belfast and Newcastle and Leeds and Bradford, and this is Dublin. Still none in Cambridge and London. So that is what we would call a systemic variation. It's a tune that some people have and some people don't have, broadly speaking. I think it's possible for a Southern Standard British English speaker to produce a rise plateau, but we really don't do it quite as much. So in this one, we've got different available tunes, but you've also got different use of of a shared tune. So there being the Belfast speakers are using the Rise Plateau pretty much all the time, but the Leeds and Bradford speakers are only using it in questions and not in statements, for example. Okay, there you go. So where does Multicultural London English fit into this? And let's just listen to our friend again.
She's a meaty thing.
Okay, so the research question was, is that rise-fall pattern really special or different? And I've already given you the spoiler alert. We're going to say this is not different in the sense of being something that no one else has. It's not a systemic difference, but it is different in the other sense of they're using it in a different way or the distribution is different. So yes, it is special and different, but not in the way that most people assume. Most people assume it's like, weird thing that only Emily speakers have. I go, no. And Elisa and I listen and I go, that's completely normal. We all do that. We just don't do it as much, perhaps. Yeah. So how did we do this? It's quite a small sample because this takes quite a long time to do. Am I doing this or are you doing this?
I think I was going to do it, but you can do it.
I'll just... I'll go. So we selected 4 speakers each from the data that we've got in what we call the old sample from 20 years ago and from the new sample we collected in the last 3 years. Largely it was Elisa and others actually out with the microphones in London. And so we ended up with 8 monolingual speakers of English as a first language. They're all of Caribbean descent. We're trying to sort of control the sample at the moment. They're all from East London, and they were all teenagers at the time of recording. And we listened to 6 of our sociolinguistic interviews. They're typically recorded in pairs, and the average length of those is about an hour. And in those 6 hours plus of data, we found 192 examples of things we wanted to listen to. We found roughly 1 thing per 1 to 2 minutes of speech. It took us a while. And you can't search for these things in the text. You've got to listen. We again have sad and happy lives listening to hours of speech. It was quite fun. And for these, yes, no, so what we were listening for, and I'll unpack a little bit more afterwards, the methods that we used, but we were listening out for yes, no questions of different types, and these examples of the things like the meaty ting, where we've got this really obvious lengthening of a word for dramatic effect or emphasis. And then we listened to them and we said, oh, is it a rise, is it a fall, is it a rise, fall? And we agreed with each other, 93%. We only kept the ones where we agreed. And then we did some measuring of the pitch, which I'm going to show you. And then we also classified the yes-no questions according to their grammatical structure. And we split them into 2 groups. So real yes-no questions, where we do the thing that we do in English, or at least our UK English, where we move the auxiliary verb to the front to turn it into a yes-no question, versus what we would call a declarative question, where you just use the same grammar syntax as a statement, but you just change your intonation. Yeah, and we'll see an example in a moment. To note already that we've got a lot of these declarative questions, so we think that's quite interesting. There seems to be more use of this, and that's perhaps not surprising. So we're going to try this at home now, a little breather, because I've been talking a lot. This is one of our lead-in tasks, so we've got 5 transcripts of real examples of the ones that we listened to. So what we're thinking here is these were all utterances in which there was emphatic consonantal lengthening, like the meaty ting, yeah? And I would like you now, you can have 1 minute to do it, it's be super quick. Choose one of the utterances and try to guess which of the words you think might be emphasised. Okay? Just pick one. And people at home do the same thing. And then I'll play them and you can see if you were right. Say again?
I assume people would have the PowerPoint so they can...
It's already on there. It's already on there. Oh, no, the audio isn't.
It's just the audio.
No,
yeah.
no, they've got to wait for that.
They've got to wait for that, that's fine.
The audio is on the classroom materials, but we want them to do the task. So I'll play them in a minute. Yeah. The sound files aren't embedded.
Yeah, no, they're not embedded on
But all the sound files I'm using are on the classroom materials. But the slides are at the bottom of the case study page. Okay, how are we doing? So I'm going to play these, and you can just see if you were right. And you can enjoy the beautiful lengthening that we found. Okay, here's the first one.
But this morning I snapped.
Yeah, and that snapped. It was like a month long, that S. Snapped. And we love that you can lengthen clusters. You can. It's not like one consonant. You can have like a glob of a glob of consonants, and lengthen those, which shouldn't be possible.
He's talking about a new mug.
So that mug, you mug. And mug is one of the most commonly lengthened words. It was a long conversation between two boys about where they were disagreed over something.
I worked for it, so no one's taking it from me. It is mine.
And there, the M is long, and the I, mine, is mine. The M is long, but also the whole word, the vowel is lengthened as well.
He's so hard. You say he doesn't want to play for the team.
He's so hard, yeah? He's so hard. I'll play that one again.
He's so hard. You say he doesn't want to play for the team.
And then last but not least.
I'm local, like where I was, I lived there with my mum.
Yeah. Now, it's a little bit artificial to ask you to guess which word would be emphasised because you've got no context, yeah? And if you look at this lead-in task, one of the things that we suggest you do is go on working with the students about how they might write this, which is possibly a fun exercise to think about how, if you were writing this in a script for actors, in this zone where we're thinking about actors trying to do Emily, how would you indicate which word should be lengthened? You could underline it like the conversation analysts do, but how would you show that lengthening? And what would the person before in the script be saying for that to be how you say it? And that's actually quite complex linguistic thinking about the structuring of how we manage information. So should be quite a rich activity. Okay, so let's think about our results. For these lengthening, we looked at what sounds can be lengthened, and we're using the International Phonetic Alphabet here. A lot of these sounds are as you would think. This one is sh, and this is the sort of the British English sound as opposed to r or r or r. So it's r. So and basically it's pretty much anything. There's a lot of M's, and that's because of all the mugs. You can lengthen words with multiple consonants, crazy. We like the prawn one. I almost put it in, but it was talking about a delicious meal. That was some prawn. But anyway, and you heard snapped. Bear is a lot. We have a lot of bears, we have a lot of mads, a lot of mugs. It's used a lot more by the male teenagers, and that is interesting and something we'll keep an eye on. It also closely resembles descriptions of a similar pattern that is you have in Trinidadian Creole. Is the rise fall really special? So for this one, we were doing some sort of full-on phonetic and statistical analysis. I'll talk you through the plots, and we won't look at the statistics, but this is just a visualization of the pitch contour. You've got two plots here, sort of at the top or the bottom, and the only difference between these is the number of, whether there were syllables after that main sort of mead, in mead eating, you've got some syllables after it. But sometimes in you mug, there's no syllables after it. And we need to keep those separate, otherwise we wouldn't be able to see the patterns in the pitch plot. And across the top is the label that we gave it. I've lost my cursor, come back. So you can see we didn't hear many falls or fall rises or one rise plateau. Loads of rise falls, yeah? And the little squiggly line you can see is the actual pitch of the utterances that we labelled. The black ones are the new sample, and the orangey yellow ones are the old sample from 20 years ago. And then the dotted lines are the male speakers, and the non-dotted lines are the female speakers. And it's a very similar pattern down here. So you can just see visually that, and so the rows here, this is the yes-no questions, this is the declarative questions, and this is these lengthened things, yeah? And what you can see is there's a lot of rise falls, much more than I would expect to see in from a different group of speakers. And it doesn't matter what sentence type or utterance type, they're just as, it's like the Belfast thing of, this is my contour and I use it in a lot of places. And I haven't shown it to you, but we did do the careful checking, and these are phonetically very similar to each other. There's no difference in the shape of them. And because you can do this rise-fall thing, I could do it. I can say, I can't do one now to order. There were lots of rise-fall contours. I could say there were lots of rise-fall contours, but I could also say there were lots of rise-falls contours. And it's slightly emphatic to do it for me. These guys are doing it everywhere, because the questions they're not emphatic, they're just asking a question. So and it doesn't, it might sound emphatic to someone who isn't an MLE speaker, but it probably isn't for them. And this is an example of semantic variation. So it's a contour that most varieties of English have, but the MLE speakers are using it to do more things with than we see in other varieties. The other things we saw is, as I said, lots of declarative questions, and the Caribbean Creole languages don't have the ability to move the auxiliary verb to the front. And we wonder if that's maybe one of the influences, is that it's an influence in MLE that you are less likely to do that. Because if you were carrying over the syntax or the grammar rules of Caribbean Creole, you can't do that. You have to just use the statement and change your intonation. And one of the things we're really interested in, and Deviani will talk about this more this afternoon, is that we didn't find any obvious differences between the new and the old speakers. So this aspect of multicultural London English prosody is really stable across a 20-year period, which is extraordinarily cool. Spoilers for later. Okay, just to say this is our team, this is GLE team, and you'll meet them again later from Deviani. The thing we wanted to point out about our methods is something which I hope could be quite useful for you for NEAs or something like that, is how did we solve the problem that we had to look for these things in a sea of spontaneous speech? And how did we look for things where we didn't go in looking for rise falls, is the key thing. If we were just looking for rise falls, we'd have just measured rise falls and said, look, there's lots of rise falls, and we wouldn't have learnt anything. So we can't search for intonation patterns in a transcript. And to show variation, it's a critical thing in sociolinguistics, which is, Selena said this less than an hour ago, is that we can't only count the thing we're interested in. We have to count all the times when they could have done the thing we're interested in. Yeah? So this is known as the concept of the envelope of variation, as it were. And it's explained in the extension task for one of the other case studies. All the links to this are in the classroom materials. So in this case, we went to look for things that are easy to find by non-prosodic criteria. So we wanted to find a way into understanding the system of intonation in this new variety of English that's not been described before for its intonation. So we picked things that are easy to find. And we were asked this at a conference recently, say, why did you choose these? Was it just because they were the easiest to find? And we went, yes. Yep, we just picked these because they're easy to find. So we chose yes-no questions because we can borrow the ideas from conversation analysis and look at how the other people in the conversation treat an utterance as evidence that it's really a question. Yeah? So in the same way, in that adjacency pair, you look at, you've got your first pair part and your second pair part, and you look to see if they're matching or not, and you can understand what the social action was in the first one from how it's responded to. And I'll show you an example. And then those lengthening things are really, you can hear those, they're lengthened. They're not difficult to spot. In fact, we were constantly sending each other examples of them on our Project Teams channel. There's another one. So Do try this at home. This is the last lead-in. You could use it in a different way. But just to unpack that difference between a yes-no question or a declarative question is very simple here. You've got 6 questions there, and the task would be to say what type of question is it. So is it a yes-no question where you've moved the auxiliary verb to the front, or is it a declarative question which just has normal word order of a statement? This is in some ways a trivial task because you can look to see which ones are fronted, but it hopefully would reinforce some deeply buried grammar and from GCSE that wouldn't never go amiss. So I'm going to ask you to say to the person next to you in 10 seconds, find one that has a fronted auxiliary verb. Go. Okay. Is that how easy or hard is that? Is that easy? It's middling. It's easy-ish, but not worth doing. See. So I would say that this one is a declarative question. You could just say your fence is closed or your fence is closed. This person says?
Your fence is closed. Yeah.
And you can hear in the clip we've kept the person's reply, yeah? So you can hear them say an answer, yeah?
Your fence is closed.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was in a game they were playing. They asked crazy questions about a game. Is she blonde? Where is the auxiliary? It's at the front. Yeah, so here you could say she is blonde, but to make it a question, we've moved the auxiliary. Is she blonde? Yeah. And this one, which was this? Auxiliary, and here we've got dummy do. The dummy do auxiliary has been used because you could say, have I to sit here? But that's a little bit archaic now, so we would now say, do I have to sit here? Have I to sit here would be perfectly good in some varieties of Northern English. It feels sort of Northern Irish or Scottish. Will I sit here is completely normal Northern Irish.
Oh, I have to sit here so long.
That is at the end of the interview. Do I have to sit here so long? And you can hear Sue Fox in the background. 20 years ago.
She bumped into you.
So that's another declarative one. And you can hear the rise fall on it, yeah?
She bumped into you.
She bumped into you. Yeah. This is another yes-no question with the fronting. Whoa. Oh, I've given you the answers. Look at that.
You have that?
Do you have that? And then last.
Waiting at school.
You've got that answer, yeah? So if you wanted to, you could go on in the task and then get students to listen to the intonation patterns. You don't have to go there to intonation, but you could use this with or without that. And a bit of extra practice, you could transform it. We start at 1:45, we didn't we? The answers are there, and they're also in the classroom activities. These are just lots of rise falls, which won't surprise you because that's what you've just seen in the results. So the other extension tasks, which we can go through them in a little bit. We'll take some questions first, perhaps. But we've got two really nice videos here of one is an interview, but it's fairly spontaneous. No, the first one is quasi-spontaneous. It's sort of podcast spontaneous. And then the second one is a little bit more spontaneous. And then some tasks identifying. You can either look at for the emphasis tokens or for the questions or other features in those. We can look at those. And then we've got a task about accent coaches and looking at their data and evaluating how accurate they are or the way they talk. There's a lot of heavy stereotyping goes on those web pages, not least in the choice of imagery used. So we'll take some questions maybe now, which gives us plenty of time. And then if, then we can show you some of the extension tasks. That's all right? Yeah. Thank you.
Can I just ask that? I've just wrote this down. I want to check if I've written it right. So is it the prevalence of the declarative questions as a Caribbean form that's come through into MLE that maybe increases the fact that there's lots more intonation of the rise fall, because kind of you have to do that to make that question?
And I wouldn't link those, actually, I don't think, no. So there's just more, just even before we listen to the intonation, just from the transcript or from the word order, we can see that these things that we thought were questions because they were answered as a question.
Didn't have the structure.
And some of them, you know, some of them had an auxiliary move to the front, and some of them didn't. And we just looked at the syntax for that, or the grammar. And there's just more of them than I would expect. That's just, we haven't done an equivalent thing in a...
Cause of the intonation?
No, I don't think so, no. No, I don't think so. But I think it's interesting that one of the varieties of a language in Jamaica or in the Caribbean that would have been an influence on Jamaican patois and then on Black British English, which is sort of part of the contribution of Devian is going to talk very clearly about this, about how we understand the roots of all this coming together. That's part of the grammar of those languages, and maybe it's coming through. And I don't think this has been talked about for MLE. No. So it's very hard to prove. We can't prove, because we haven't got, you know, we can't prove that there's more than there would have been if they hadn't been MLE speakers. But we can look at, once we get going, we can look at other speakers in the sample who have a different background or a different speech variety and see if they're per hours of speech, how many declarative questions are there? That's quite a long task. Yes.
Question from Paul?
Paul's got a question. Excellent. Oh, no pressure.
A couple of things. One is, just listening to those samples, the last ones you played, I sort of thought, yeah, that's what MLE is. And that's what I've failed to actually explain. They don't sound like MLE to me.
Well, they are all MLE, but yeah.
But I mean, but I didn't have the vocabulary to express that to you or anybody else. So I hear it when MLE speakers are being interviewed on Radio 4 for something about crime, probably, or something. They often, they have that intonation, and I notice it, and I thought, yeah, I wish I'd managed to pick that up. And the second thing is that it gives us sort of the choppy impressions of fall, 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 fall. You don't notice the rise so much, but the fall certainly.
Yep.
That's something I very much noticed. And the pronunciation studio, whatever it's called, when they actually say the same thing. It's not completely wrong.
No, actually, most of the accent coaches are pretty good, actually. There was one I found who was completely loopy. I haven't even given you the link. I just thought, I can't disseminate this.
Some of them actually...
They're pretty good.
Yeah, there was one in particular that I find that we should hire him. The London guy.
Yes, anyway, he's on here, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's on there. And it does that impression.
I feel like that could lead into like real prejudices within. There's a lot of prejudice, as you sort of alluded to there with the interviews about crime. But if that's a pattern that you perceive in other examples as maybe curt or clipped, it could be misinterpreted as a speech pattern that is linked to a certain emotion or a certain, wrongly prejudiced against.
I think it might well be.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people would say, that the speakers sound aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's also the topic of the conversation. So when we, for the task 3, we gave this to, because I spent hours trying to find something that was MLE and good enough and didn't talk about drugs and crime and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so my research has been, we've both worked on lots of other languages as well as English. And my first research was on a variety of Arabic, which has lots of rise falls. Beep, 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 pretty much on every word. Egyptian Arabic goes do, 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 and I'm in mosque. There's a beautiful clip from one of the sad Egyptian footballers saying, which is full of loan words, where he goes, a referee no fair. Anyway, but he does it with referee, which means the referee. Anyway, it's very cute. But anyway, if you listen to him, he has a lot of these do, 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 which is a little bit different from other varieties of Arabic, which are more ba, 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 ba. And also, I would say Italian has a lot of bumps in it.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear me? Jumping all over the way.
Yeah. And so I did an experiment. It was just a small experiment, and it wasn't perfect. But what I did was I took an English utterance and an Egyptian utterance. They were both the first line of the Cinderella story. Well, it was Cinderella in English, but it was another story about an Arabic folk hero. And then I artificially changed them. So in the English one, the normal one was, once upon a time, there was a girl called Cinderella, but everyone called her Cinders. And I artificially added more bumps into it. So you had about 6 versions of it. One was the original one, and then other ones where I went, once upon a time, there was a girl called Cinderella, and everyone called her Cinder. So it had, and then with the Egyptian one, I started with the normal Egyptian Arabic one, which was جحكن طول عمره عاش بالقرية ويوم في العنان. Anyway, I won't do the Arabic for you. Anyway, a lot of bumps. And then I artificially manipulated it to flatten it so that there was an English-like intonation over the Arabic words. And then I played them to people, and they had to answer 2 questions. So the first question was, I can't remember what the first question was. I think I had some neutral thing just to sort of keep them awake. But then the second question was how, I didn't use the word aggressive. I used how assertive. And there was a very clear difference. So basically, people thought the more bumps you have, the more assertive you sound. And I think if I had been more brave and used the word aggressive, we might have got a cleaner result.
I mean, as an Italian native speaker who speaks English all the time, I'm being told all the time that I sound aggressive.
Yeah. Well, and when I used to listen to Egyptians, think they're just all mad with each other all the time. What is going on?
Exactly.
And I thought, no, they're just talking. But anyway. Sorry, Hugh. Was there another question? Yeah, go. And if there are some online, let us know.
This might be a bit garbled in my head, but I've noticed on Love Island that this year, more than previous years, there's been some little accents of Emily in non-Emily speakers. So in terms of saying ting, for example, or little pronunciations, like a bit on the cropping up. In terms of convergence, does the intonation work as part of the convergence, or is it more obvious, kind of lexical markers and phonetic markers?
So the answer is we don't know. Interestingly, if you work your way through all of these tasks, so I'm going to stop sharing it, but Ben, say if there's any questions at home. I'm just going to reshare, find the web page. Okay. Where's the Zoom meeting? Reshare. And we'll go to the... So this is the case study page. And as with all of the case study pages, everything we're talking about is here. It's already there now for you to look at. It sort of unpacks some of these things in a bit more detail. And then you've got links through to the activities and also the slides. So you can look at those. It hasn't got the sound files embedded, but all of the sound files we've used are linked from the extension task or the lead-in task. If we go to the extension task, and let's make this a little bit bigger for you here in the room. Go away, ribbon. No, can't make that go away. Full screen. So there are 2 videos. They're both nice because they've got full transcripts, so people can work through them and search through them. And basically, you can listen out for the emphasis, and we've given you the answers. Obviously, take the red things out if you distribute these. Yeah, I mean, you know that. Identifying different types of questions, and we've put in some other kinds. This is quite advanced. You could strip out some of this and simplify it. One of the things we did, so I've listed the different questions here, but we know we can have a listen to one of these. And the task is to just find the ones where they give an answer so you know it's a question. Yeah? So here there's an example, what's the best crisp flavour? Which is obviously salt and vinegar. apparently. And then I've added here what the intonation pattern is, and you could scaffold this in a layer of tasks with students. And we did the same for this gorgeous Stormzy video with these two kids. And we weren't looking for this, but I just noticed there's lots of rise falls in the Stormzy video and not so many in the Borders video. And that you could end, that's a place you could go. You could draw out the fact that there are more rise falls in the one or the other. So I think, now, we don't know, this is us speculating, but the Borders actors, I don't know if you're familiar with that BBC Three Borders, some of them are probably not Emily speakers.
One says this, he's from Birmingham.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Anyway,
no, I didn't.
I'm from Birmingham. So then they are actors doing an Emily speak, and they're kind of doing it in this video because it's a promotional video. So I'm not surprised that then, even though it's on the accent coaches are saying do it, it's quite hard to do. It's probably very much below the level of awareness. We probably interpret all the extra bumps and think, oh, you're a bit mad with me. But we couldn't say, oh, there are lots of bumps. Because,
perhaps it requires exposure, long-term exposure to
whereas these
moving to a more different. I mean, I've been living in this country for more than 10 years. I still cannot do it. So, and I think about this stuff all the time.
So we've given you here some links to various accent coach websites, blogs, or a couple of videos. This last one is less accurate. We'll just give you a hint of that. The Accent Help one, it's an American talking about Emily, and it sort of falls over in a few places. But I think there's a lot of material that you could play with. Do you want to watch a bit of Stormzy? And then one of the things we're listening out for is, I'll start a minute in where we've got, after a minute and a half, we get some of these nice examples of the lengthening, and then the questions. They're a bit earlier. I mean, it's an interview, but we're going to hear this one. Yeah. Give you all motion sickness looking at this.
No, sorry to bring this up, but you need to talk to me about that wig, because that wig is all over the place.
That wig, I'm going to have to auction that wig.
Exclusive.
Kind of based on a true story where basically, so funny thing that always happens with me is I with my amazing team, I might have a day out and I'll have a story, but to me it's just something that happened in the day, and then these guys will always say that's a little bit crazy, but basically some kids knocked on my door once upon a time, and I got really angry about it because they were being super annoying, like how these men were in the film. And then when I told it to the amazing Akura from my team, she was like, that should be a film. And then this probably happened about, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And then she actually went and turned it into a script, and now we go big.
Now we're here now.
Yeah.
So, Clovis and Jaden, can you sum up your sort of characters in one line for me? Could you sum up in one line?
Ooh, cheeky guys.
Enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic. Driven, very driven as well.
Cheeky guys. Anyway, yeah. So there's lots of material there, and there's a bunch of other stuff, obviously, you could do with this. There's a full transcript that you could play with.
The film, unfortunately, is not available for free anymore, but it's really, really nice. There's a short, if you have some Apple subscription, I'm not supporting it, but watch it because it's really nice. The film is very nice. Unfortunately, it used to be free when it was released, but it's not free anymore.
Yeah. So, any last questions? Paul has got one.
I mean, I wonder how this translates into non-Caribbean, non-African speakers of MLE.
Yeah.
Any idea?
No.
Not for now.
No. Yeah, so because no one's done this before, we started, the first descriptions of MLE were in East London, because you had to start somewhere. And so we've started there as well, sort of catching up. I always joke that when people write a description of a language, typically no one ever describes the intonation. So yeah, I'm writing a book about intonation. I just say it's the last chapter of all the other books. Where they said, oh, and there's intonation, because it does a lot of work. We do huge amounts of work with intonation, structuring, social action, but it is quite hard to analyse. It's quite labour-intensive to analyse. So, so I suspect that you might see something quite different, but I don't know. You might see quite shared things. We pass.
In the future.
Inshallah.
It will come.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the teenagers that you were part of the study in 2004, do you know, have they changed?
That's a good question.
Ooh, come back after lunch.
You know about that after lunch.
Oh.
Sorry, that was my bad. I was trying to get you to share audio. It doesn't matter.
Okay. No. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it doesn't matter. If it's in all videos, apparently the audio wasn't playing on.
Oh, I'm sorry. They've got the links. Yep. So Deviani's going to arrive at lunchtime. She's going to explain the structure of the new data collection. And we also talk about that a little bit on the case study for her page, the London teenagers one. And so it's a real-time study. So we've got teenagers again, 20 years later, but we have managed to find some of the previous ones. Not many. I think we got about 4 or 5 in the end. And one of our speakers is one of the ones that we found again.
Yeah, but we only looked at him as a teenager for now in this study.
I think he might be the one who said, "Do I have to sit here?" But he sounds well. I'll let Deviani say what he sounds like now. But he's a teacher now, so. You come back after lunch and don't leave too early. But if you do have to leave, it'll all be videoed. Yeah, we should stop. I know prosody barely features on the A-level spec, but it's sort of underneath. It's in the substract. Like you don't have. There's not going to be a question on intonation, or prosody. But it's a level of language description that you could help your students get confident with dealing with.